Hey everyone, how's it going? So what am I working on now? Well, I got my neighbor's 2002 Ford Excursion with a 5.4, and he's telling me he had a coolant leak, and he could see where that pipe goes across, that it was leaking on one side. So not thinking about it, I was like, oh, okay, I could do that. That's not a terrible, terrible job. You can do it without pulling the intake and stuff like that. Wrong. I made a video, I don't know, a couple months back, where on a newer model 5.4, newer, I'm talking like 2010, 2011, 2012, something like that, where the crossover pipe goes underneath into the valley. It kind of comes from one side, loops down, then goes to the other side to the head because it goes from one head to the other. On those, there's a trick that you file down an edge, a casting edge, and you can get the thing in and out and change the gasket. And it's separate gaskets. Not on this design. This early design had a one-piece gasket that, well, two pieces actually, but one piece on each side, on each head, that's for the intake. It runs basically, all the ports of the intake, and then runs the water jacket. So I got to take the whole darn thing apart. Wasn't happy about it, but I was like, I already told my neighbor I was going to do it for him. So let me just show you real quick what I got to do here. So here's the motor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my microphone in that, and this way you can see me doing some of this. But here's that water crossover pipe here. It runs from this side to this side. Looks easy enough. However, they have bolts that come up from underneath. There's three of them. There's 1, 2, and 3 on these on each side. So you have to pull the intake off, flip it over, take the 3 bolts out on each side to get the gasket off. Yeah, kind of a dumb design, but what are you going to do? I didn't design it, obviously. So let me set you up on a tripod. Let me go get a microphone. Like I said, you got to take the alternator out of this thing. So got to disconnect the battery, just to be on the safe side. I may want to move this thing back an inch because I'm on the edge of where the garage door closes. See that? So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the garage door to actually close. So, all right. Let me do that. Let me get everything ready here, and then we're going to start this job. All right. Sounds good. Okay, so before I start, I just want to thank Scott Anderson. He sent me a tool way back when, and it got lost in the move. And I just came across it. I've been going through boxes. I knew I had it. I apologize, Scott, for not giving you the shout out. I wanted to thank you for the tool, too, obviously. But check this out. It's actually really nice. For hose clamps, to get off different style hose clamps, it's a B-E-T-O-O-L-L, B-E-T-O-O-L-L, B-tool, B-tool. But this is actually pretty cool. Different things to get hoses off, different tools to get underneath them for hose clamps. These cable style hose clamp pliers, these things work excellent for the different style squeezy clamps. This is to separate hoses, like when they're on the tube and you need to push them off. This is for the new style clamp, which I got to show you one day when I get one, that a lot of people think are single use only, and they're not. You can actually reuse them. But this tool is for that, for taking them off and putting them on. And you got the different types of pliers. Nice little toolkit. Like I said, lost it in the move, and I finally came across it. So it was in mixed. I had it with some other stuff mixed in with like household stuff, because it's been a year, and it's been almost 2 years, and we're still unpacking. And I'm sure those of you who have moved an entire house, you kind of know what I'm going through. Anyway, so let's start on this. What's the first thing you do? You disconnect the battery, because I got to take the alternator off. So let me set you up a little tripod here. I'm not going to run you through every single aspect of this, but I'll run you through most things. All right, so disconnect the battery. This is a little giveaway that Harbor Freight had one day. And the funny thing is, I got that when we first moved into the house, same time I got that toolkit, and I had this with that toolkit, and I had forgotten all about this too. Not that I had forgotten about it, I just didn't know where it was. And I finally found it. So we're just going to disconnect the battery here. Sometimes the battery terminal will not come straight off, and you got to spread it just a little bit to get it off. So there we go, safely out of the way. So now normally on one of these, I don't bother taking the overflow bottle out. Sometimes you have to. I try to avoid it if possible. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. Excuse me. But we got to take these hoses off. So, see which tool are we going to use? Guess we're going to try this one. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. This thing does have coolant in it, so it may spill out coolant. Now, a lot of these locking pliers will not lock for some reason. I don't know why. I've purchased Snap-on ones and factory. When I was at the dealer, we got dealer supplied tools and stuff like that. And a lot of times, for some reason, you can't get them. See, oh, there it locked. A lot of times you can get them to lock, or you can't get them to lock rather. Sometimes you can. Most of the times you can't. No matter who makes the darn tool, it seems. I do have a pair, believe it or not, from Mac Tools, and I've had them for years, and they actually worked really good for a short period of time, and then all of a sudden they stopped working. So, yeah, there's no coolant right there, so I'm not overly concerned. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to strip down. What can you see? What can't you see? Let me see. Let me get that upper hose off of there. Oh, and sometimes on these pliers, if you pay attention, one end of the jaw is thicker than the other end of the jaw. And the reason for that is some of these pliers, the way they will lock, or one of these clamps, the way they'll lock when you open them, if you flip the head over to the other side, it'll actually depress the ramp that locks it in place. This isn't that style though. So I'm just going to move the clamp. Oh, there, the locking pliers locked. Or the locking part of these pliers locked. All right, so we're going to lose some antifreeze. That's okay. Not too concerned about it. All right, so basically I got to start stripping down things. I got to take this upper bracket off the alternator, because you got to take the alternator out completely, because otherwise you can't get the intake out. The way the intake sits, it's kind of a pain to get in and out. So, all right, let me start doing that. Like I said, I don't want to bore you with every little last bit of it. Actually, let's see. I got some of my stuff right here. Because like I said, this upper bracket has to come out. I'm going to see if I can't get some power tools in here for some of this. This is not happy. This is quarter drive, so I'm gonna have to get some bigger tools. All right, let me go do that. I will be right back. Let's just see if this works. Let's see. All right, so I cracked everything free by hand. And now, what I'm gonna do, take these bolts out. This bolt on this side was not happy coming out. It like partially seized in the threads. Man, it gave me a little bit of a fit. I was afraid I was going to break it. Luckily, it didn't break. Now this job will not be finished today because I had mistakenly told my neighbor that he had that other style crossover pipe, but I had never actually looked at the car. So, my mistake. I should have never done that, but I did. So, we got the wrong parts. Let's put the parts off to the side here. I think I will take this overflow tank and move it out of the way. Let me back you up. I don't know if I'm going to completely undo it though. I think I'll just take the bolts out. Now I'm not using any fancy snap-on stuff like I would at work, but I am using Harbor Freight, and as you can see, DeWalt. I've never tried Harbor Freight's electric tools. I've heard mixed reviews. I know somebody that's had their, matter of fact, it's Jaden at the shop. He's had their half-inch drive gun for taking off lug nuts. He's had it for like 3 years. He says this thing has never let him down. It's been absolutely fantastic. But he's had 3/8 guns, and he said they were garbage. So, I don't know. Just weird. I forgot which one it was that he has now. It's the blue one. But I'm not quite sure which one that is. And this thing has a hose clamp underneath it, but I'm going to try to avoid taking that off if at all possible. And I might not be able to get around it. Now, since I'm not doing this in the shop at work and I'm doing this at home, I don't have the same number of tools or, you know, specialty tools and tools to get around certain things. I don't have them here at home, so sometimes taking stuff off makes life a little bit easier. So I'm going to use this tool here because there's a clamp. See it right there? Let me see if I can actually focus in on that while I'm doing it. That's not good. Does that help? Let's see. Other way. All right, let's see if I can't get that clamp off. It's funny, I had the snap on one of these tools. I hated it, absolutely hated it. And then I bought a more budget-friendly one, like this one, and it worked absolutely perfect, like this one actually is. But the problem with these style is sometimes you experience what I just experienced, and the tool doesn't set right and pops off. All right, that actually worked really well. All right, that worked very well. I'm happy with that. There again, I'm going to lose a little bit of coolant. This thing was quite low to begin with, so I'm not overly concerned about the little bit that I'm losing. Put that off to the side. So now I got to get the belt off. Now that that's out of the way, let me put you back. I have no way of showing you me getting the belt off per se. The tensioner is down there. I'm pretty sure these things have a 1/2 inch drive on the tensioner. Let me get my headlight on. Let me get these tools out of my way first. It appears to be a 1/2 inch drive. I don't think it's 3/8. I have a 3/8 out here. No, it's definitely a 1/2 inch drive. All right, let me grab that. Hang on one second. All right, so there's the 1/2 inch into the front there. And what happens is as you put tension on it like this, see it loosens the belt. I know I got the light in the way there, but that's how that works. Now I did tell my neighbor to get a new belt too, because this one's all cracked. So let's see if he gets a new belt. He's not going to have the parts till tomorrow. But there, just off. And it's reasonably simple. It's not all that difficult. Then at the bottom of the alternator, there's a 10 there and there's a 10 on that side there. You've got to take those out to get the alternator off. Now, yeah, the alternators on these are actually notched, so you can leave the bolts in place. I usually loosen them up quite a bit. They're pretty long bolts, but I usually loosen them up quite a bit. Verify your battery's disconnected. I just popped my head over and took a quick look just to make sure. Don't want to ever short anything out because that could be a disaster. So now the alternator comes up out of the way, and I'm just going to stuff it to the side, leaving the wiring harness attached to it. So now this water pipe here, this would be such a simple job, but there's 2 bolts here that are underneath, and there's 2 bolts here that are underneath. But the gasket is all one piece that runs all the way to the back. So, yeah, it was kind of a stupid design on Ford's part. But what are you going to do? All right. So let me detrim the air intake system. Let me get that off and out of the way, and then we'll pick back up on this. And I want, like I said, this video is going to be way too long if I cover absolutely everything on here. So now with the air intake out of the way, there's a bunch of electrical connectors that have to come out. The linkage here has to come out. Because this is not an electronic throttle body. Spring has to come off of here. So now, this bracket has to come off for the cables. Let's see, these vacuum hoses have to come out of the way. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, this elbow to the throttle, for the throttle body that goes down to the intake, this elbow should unbolt, yeah, from the intake, because you got to lift this intake up, because this bottom piece down here is, I don't know if you can see that in the video. This bottom piece down there, that's part of the intake. So you got to get that intake up quite high to get it out of the valley. So let me start getting all of that stuff off. There again, you're probably not going to be able to watch me because it's just way too difficult to film and have you watch me at the same time. So let me start getting stuff off. When I come across something really important, I will show you. So I got all the other bolts off except for this one in the front here. And I always leave the easiest one for last. Why is that? Well, the reason being, I know you're probably looking at my arm. The reason being is, save the easiest one for last, because what happens is if you leave the hardest one for last, and all of a sudden you start to loosen something up, that piece may start flopping around, and then in the process of flopping around, it can make it really difficult getting the bolt out. So that's why I always take the hardest ones out first and save the easiest ones for last. And we have stuff hooked up to this, and we have a gasket that somebody siliconed at some point. Alright, so we have an electrical connector. And I think that's really it, because yeah, there we go. Because that vacuum hose comes out with it. Alright. So that's good. Alright, let's just put this someplace safe. In the garage. All right, so now we can just keep going and keep taking stuff off. I may actually have to let air out of the front tires because the front of this thing is up quite high. Unless I can get something else to stand on that'll help me out. Let's see, the coils. Oh yeah, that's right. I already changed spark plugs in this thing once. last year. Got to take the fuel lines off. All right, let me just start disconnecting stuff. I don't know, what can you see right now? All right. Really all I'm going to do is start disconnecting electrical connectors. You do have to pull the coils out because they will be in your way otherwise. And as a matter of fact, I think they do. They bolt down to the intake manifold. You can, this style, you can wiggle the injector around a little bit to move it, to make it a little bit easier. All right, let me start getting all that stuff undone. I'm going to pull the coils out. Same exact thing as if you were going to do spark plugs. It's 7mm that hold it down. But let me do that. Let me start getting all of that undone. Now, of course, the thingy ain't working. Now, one thing I wanted to point out is on cylinder, what is it, 4 or 5? On cylinder 6, the coil, the bolt for the coil, hold on a second, let me actually shut this off, turn this on. The bolt for the coil, see it right there, that 7mm? That right there. That could be a real bugger to get to because the fuel pressure regulator is right above it. So what you need is a 7mm swivel. Now, this is an old Matco I have. It works fine. It's definitely not as nice as a Snap-on. I will give Snap-on extreme credit for their 7mm swivel, quarter drive. That thing is, because it's nice and short, like it's much shorter than this. And it's a much nicer piece. Like I had lost my Snap-on, so I figured out, let me just get a Matco to replace it. And I got this, and I was using this for a little while, and I was like, nope, I'm going to spend the money on the Snap-on. Because the Snap-on ones are ridiculously expensive. Like this thing was, I don't know, at the time, 18 bucks. And I think the Snap-on socket was like 50. But yeah, I will only use the Snap-on at work. For home, this works fine because I don't use it all that often. So let me get in there, and this is not easy. You could probably do it with a wrench. I'm not going to lie to you. You could probably do it with a wrench if you are so inclined. Me, I'm not. I'm not so inclined. Because you got to come in at an angle to get on it. You could probably use a really short, you could probably use a wrench or a really short socket, quarter drive, and get in there. But it's just such a pain. It's like, I tell you, having 1/4-inch swivels really saves the day quite often. I don't really have them at home here because I don't do an incredible amount of work at home. At least I haven't been. I want to increase that because I got to get back on this Camaro and the Hornet, which I've just been cleaning stuff up that I've been neglecting over the last 1.5 years, coming up on 2 years now. All right. So with that bolt out of there, the coil should pop out just like that. Just stick it to the side. So that's the most difficult one. The one in the back on this one, because this has a return line, this one in the back is a little bit tricky too. You could do it with a straight, but I usually use a swivel on the very back one. That's number 8. So let me get the rest of these out, and we'll start taking the intake off. Actually, I got to get the fuel lines off. So now I'm going to try to film this while I do this. I don't know how well it's going to work. Now Ford uses these clips here, these retainers on these older vehicles to kind of like lock the fuel lines in place. It's just like a safety. And usually it's held on with a zip tie. Now, what I want to do is pop the other one while I'm here. Sometimes you can get them to lift. This one's not cooperating as I would like. Plus I have too big of a screwdriver in here. Yeah, this thing's not cooperating. There it goes. I got it to move, that's what. Yeah, unfortunately I need a smaller screwdriver, but let me just show you on this line in particular. Inside here is a spring, and the spring basically falls around a ramp on this piece here. So this piece, it's got this spring-loaded piece on the inside. There's O-rings and stuff in there. So let's see if I can find the right tool. These tools, they're pretty inexpensive, and if you ever plan on doing anything like this, you kind of need it. You take the tool, and what you do is you push it down and into the other line where the spring is, and it should help release the line. And there it goes. And the line is off. All right. See, it wasn't terrible to get that off. And they're usually two different sizes. This is a smaller one. The other one is probably going to be the larger size. Let me get a smaller screwdriver so I can get underneath the edge of that locking clip on there. All right, hang on 1 minute. All right, I know it's kind of difficult to see what I'm trying to point at here. Let's see if that... No, maybe not. Okay. All right. There it goes. It's up and off. So now we'll take the next size up, and I should be able to get this on there. And as you push it in, you can almost feel like the spring tension release. And it did push the line on its own, I think. Yes, no, maybe so. I'm trying to look inside, see if I can't see that spring. I gotta say, Ford did a heck of a job making this a difficult vehicle to work on. You gotta be careful too when you're pushing on these lines. You don't want to damage anything. Just using a little wiggle tactic to hopefully get it to move. I know you're probably looking at my elbow. There we go. All right. So the fuel lines are off. Let me now go to the other side, get the fuel injector. The fuel injector's disconnected. Oh, the back one on this side, the fuel injector connector comes in from the inside. It comes in this way, where these come in this way. Just so you're aware. All right, let me get the other side apart, and then we'll take the bolts out, and we should be just about ready to push this thing up and out. What I'm going to probably do is get my shop vac, put it in reverse so it works like a leaf blower, and blow the crud out of the way. I gotta say, it's actually not that bad in there. It's dirty, but it's not that bad. All right, let's see. I know you may not have seen everything I was just talking about, but I was talking about taking the shop vac, using it backwards, and blowing air down in there to keep the debris from getting into the motor. So with all the coils out and the injectors disconnected, I can start taking the intake bolts off, starting with these front ones here. And as you see, they're over there, going all the way to the back. And this is where I wish I had my Milwaukee quarter drive. I'll make sure I bring that home when I go to put this thing back together. I tell you what, because there's a pain in the neck doing everything by hand on this thing, especially because of how tall it is and having to lean over it and everything else. Pain in the neck. But anyway, is what it is. What are you going to do? All right, let me finish getting those apart, and then let's pop this intake. And here's my shop vac. What the heck is this thing? Anyway, it's a Craftsman. Okay. This thing works pretty good. I think I got it a year and a half ago. They had a sale at the parts store, at one of the home improvement stores. I picked it up. But anyway, so you hook the hose up to the back side of it, the exhaust side of it, and you create a blower. What I did was I actually took a funnel, a flexible funnel, and I just taped it to the end of this. That's all. So now you turn it on. It creates pressure. So you could use that. Here you can see it going up against there. Anyway, you're going to use this to clean that off. I know that was probably really loud on the video, but sorry about that. That's really only to get like heavy debris out of the way. So hopefully this intake should come up and out. Let's see. All right, I am still filming, right? Yep, okay. Let me just move. I use, I'm using rims and tires from the Camaro to make a step to get in here. And there we go, up and out. So now what we're going to do is I'm just going to flip this thing over. And I'm going to let you see the wonderful design that Ford came up with on this. Let me find a rag. Hang on a second. I'm going to have to pause you while I do this. Hang on. So with the intake off, if you look closely, you could see the plastic on the inside here deteriorated and it blew through. So what happens is it creates a leak right here where the two gaskets come together. This is just a really stupid design. Why Ford did this, I have no idea, but it's just a really dumb design. So now we're just going to take these bolts out, the 3 bolts on each side, and then we can take the gasket out. And then it will be tomorrow, I think, before I have a replacement. Let's see. Those should be 8s. Hopefully these things come right out. Yes. Now, another good thing about like using a tool like this is technically, I think it's a screw gun, I'm not quite sure. I think that's what they call them. But the impact that it creates, the actual shock, helps break free the hardware, especially if they got like a little bit of corrosion or something on there. Because sometimes when you try to break it free by hand with a hand ratchet, you can actually break them. You hear that one had a little resistance to it. So now, the gasket should come off of there somehow. I don't know why it's not wanting to come off. It's not cooperating. Well, there's the water manifold. That came off. Oh, is it an O-ring? No, it should be an O-ring. Are these individual O-rings? Yeah, they are. Huh. No. You know what? I gotta investigate this a little bit because now I don't remember how in the world all of this came together. Ooh. Unfortunately, he's going to need an intake manifold. Yep. That. Hold on. Let me hold on a second. All right. So that is actually part of the intake manifold. The gaskets are still down there. Okay, that is part of the intake manifold. Yep. All right. Well, looks like this is going to be a dormant intake. Let me call and give them the bad news. So we're back on the Ford Expedition here, and here's the old intake, and you can see where the plastic was just deteriorating. So now, here's the new intake. It's a dormant piece. You see that? What I did was, because we're going to swap these injectors over, unfortunately this new intake does not come with O-rings, but the nearest parts store, to me, is only almost 30 minutes away. So we're going to reuse the old O-rings. It goes into a plastic intake, I'm not too worried. If it went into an aluminum intake, then the chances of them tearing is much, much greater. With this, not so much. What I did do is I took WD-40 and I sprayed around the injectors. You can see it's wet there. Just WD-40, that's all I did. Stuck that around the injector. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take... Oh, look at that, the new design. They narrowed down that baffle underneath. Interesting, didn't realize that. Okay. So the new design intake has a smaller baffle. Cool. Coolio. What else? Anything else of interest to this? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it's slightly different in looks. The only thing I see that's really quite different is this pipe here. See that? Huh. Let me verify and make sure that this is the correct manifold for this, just in case. Let me just make sure. Yes, this is the correct intake. However, there is a slight difference here in this vacuum port here. This one's a slightly different size than that, but supposedly that one will work. Technically, it won't. This PCV neck here, I'm going to have to figure something out. But this PCV neck that fits there, obviously, is the wrong size there. So, but we're going to still use it anyway. So let's get this fuel rail off of here. Get these injectors off of here. Let me set you up so you can actually see what I'm doing. I don't know where I put my microphone. I had it yesterday. I don't know what I did with it. Now this intake probably has brass bosses in here for these bolts. They give you new bolts to use because in this intake it self-taps. Now I did read some bad reviews about this intake, but this is a USA made intake, so I'm wondering if the ones the reviews that I read, I wonder if they were possibly for foreign made intakes, because the quality seems okay, so I don't know. Usually just wiggle a little bit. Wiggle it just a little bit. It should come out. Just like that. I mean, it came out reasonably easy. If this was an aluminum intake, usually they get stuck in there because of corrosion and everything else. So I'm just going to lay this there so I don't damage anything. Now, can you actually see what I'm doing? Let me move you to the side. Now we're going to inspect these O-rings very carefully, and we're going to make sure that everything looks good. The rest of this intake we don't need, so I'm not concerned about it. However, obviously we need this. Let me go get a rag so I can clean down these injectors and get you in a position where you can actually see this. All right, I'll be right back. All right, so at this point, I'm just going to wipe everything down. Nice, nice. with a reasonably clean rag. Okay, so now at this point, inspect your O-rings. They actually look like they're in very good shape. They're nice and pliable too. I'm like digging my thumbnail into it. Nice and pliable. So they don't look, they're definitely not brittle. They don't look like marred or anything like that. So I'm not worried about that. They should transfer relatively easy. Let me go, I think I got tranny assembly lube here in the house. Let me go see if I can find that. So this way we can install that rail. Guess what I can't find? I can't find the tranny assembly gel. So in a pinch, what does work is this, automatic transmission fluid. So we're going to use this. I'm sure I'm going to get somebody out there saying that, no, you can't do that. Yeah, you can. Inside the transmission is a ton of O-rings. So you can't use engine oil because engine oil will swell O-rings. So if it's, I don't know if it's synthetic, may not. I don't know the answer to that part, but I do know, because I've done this in the past many times, used, this is power steering fluid, but it's power steering fluid plus 4, which is basically ATF plus 4. Shh, don't tell anybody that. So, hold on. Race car. So yeah, let's put some automatic tranny fluid on this. All we're going to do is put a dab. That's all we're going to do. I've had this for a long time. Probably 20 years. Maybe even longer. I don't know. So, all I'm going to do is stick my finger in there. Make a mess. It's all about making a mess. All this is for is to make the O-rings slide in to the intake. And like I said, because it's plastic, life is much better. It actually will go in much easier. So now remember what I said too. Cylinder number 8, which is this one, the injector faces backwards. See that? The connector faces backwards. All the other ones face out here. That one faces inward. So, get this, line it up to where it needs to be. Line all your injectors up to where they need to be. And push it down. Just like that, everything is seated. You heard it go dunk, 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 drop in place. So that should all be good. So now, what we're going to do is wipe up this mess. In the hardware kit, they give you those screws, like I said, self-tappers. They also give you the thermostat and stuff like that. I'm surprised they don't give you a grommet for the PCV. I'm really surprised. Now let me see, I don't know what's here. So let me just verify what all these bolts are in case there's 2 different sizes. I'm not quite sure. Awful lot of self-tapping screws. I don't know what the heck they're all for, though. I guess in case something went in up here, but I don't know what would even go in up there. The other intake does have provisions for it, but there's nothing there. So, but these all appear to be the same length. So I'm just going to start these 2 by hand. You can only go in barely. Oh, that's a 10. Hang on a second, let me go get a 10. Now, if you're tightening them up with a gun like I am, don't go bananas. What can you see here? You can pretty much see everything. So that's good, that's in place. That's everything that I need it to be. So now the question remains, do I put this thing on now and then worry about that later? I can. So what I think I'm gonna do is, I still gotta clean the engine surface off up there. Maybe I'll clean all that up and at least get this intake in place for tonight. I think that's a good place to start. All right, let me get that all cleaned up. I got the gasket surfaces cleaned up and it started raining. I laid the upper intake down and I started the bolts, as you can see right there. But I still got to tighten everything down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically assemble everything and get that all done. And I'll show you the very end, because pretty much it's just tighten bolts. Make sure you tighten bolts in order. There is a torque spec on this, and I think they changed it because there is a torque spec on the intake manifold. I'll show you that later when I climb up on this thing. And yeah, I was telling you about that PCV tube in the back, and what I found was this. I found this at work. And this will work just fine. Only problem is, usually this will only last for a couple of years. Sometimes longer. Depends on what this is made out of. So this is the new elbow that I got for it. Fits perfectly. And what is this? This is actually for an ignition coil. This is for an ignition wire, ignition coil. This was from that, what the heck was it? That 85 F350 when I changed the cap rotor wires. I save all my parts. When I change parts on a car, I save all the parts until the car is gone. That truck is still at the shop. So that's why the parts are still there. But I hold on to everything. Guy just drove by with a pickup truck with a trailer, and he had a huge gun safe on the back. So I actually never seen one that big. It was massive. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, I never throw out any parts. I always save parts until the vehicle's gone, because you never know what a customer's going to want to see. So that's why I do that. And these, I've done this before. They work excellent. Especially the 90s like this, they work excellent for certain vacuum fittings and stuff like that. And of course, you know, I stole this from that. But now a lot of these will not handle oil very well. They will swell and crack, which is kind of stupid if you think about it. It's like, it won't handle oil well. It's in an engine compartment. Why wouldn't it? But it's the truth. But it's the only thing I can come up with for right now. I can just about guarantee you it's probably going to outlive this truck though. I could see this truck maybe for another couple of years. By that time, this thing may start cracking. They may not. You know, this thing may be oil resistant and work out fine, because it seems perfect. It seems absolutely perfect. So, anyway. All right, let's get this all together and let's finish this up. Okay, finally done. I tell you what, these are not fun jobs when you have a bad back and knee problems. Leaning over these things, whoo boy. All right, so I just hooked up the battery. I did not put coolant in it yet. I'm not going to put coolant in it until I start it up here running, make sure everything's good. I've had people in the past, and it's pretty amazing actually. I've had people in the past say, when they see me do that, well, now you ruined the water pump. No, you didn't. The water pump already is pre-packed with grease and that. You didn't ruin the water pump. I have never in my life ruined a water pump. If I did, if a water pump failed, I'd warranty it. It doesn't matter anyway. But I've never had it happen, not once, not a single time have I ever seen anything bad happen. I even had somebody say, well, now you blew a head gasket. I blew a head gasket, I had the thing running for 25, 30 seconds. It's not enough to build up any temperature. Whatever, it blows my mind sometimes, the comments that people make, but whatever. So here it is, it's all back together. Like I said, battery's hooked up, no coolant in it yet. But there we go. So let's take a listen. Hopefully everything's good, because that was not fun. Not as a driveway repair, at least. Let's see. Oh, hold on a second. I probably may have flooded slightly, so let me hit the gas here, because I might have to do that. Hang on. Let me plan on put coolant in things. I got some kind of a massive vacuum leak somewhere over there. I'm gonna have to open up this area where the throttle body is and see if I can't figure out where it's coming from. So I just got those covers off, and there's the major vacuum leak right there. I forgot to put a vacuum line on. So I actually had installed a bolt incorrectly when I was putting it back together. I put a bolt with a stud there, so I thought that's where it was supposed to go, but that's not where it was supposed to go. So I had put this vacuum line on, realizing that that bolt went somewhere else. I took it out, and to get the bolt out, I had to take this vacuum line off. So that's also a reason for this thing hard starting, because of that massive vacuum leak. All right, let me put the rest of this back together. All right, back together. Let's see what happens now. But that would also create the hard starting. I don't know if I mentioned that. What did I do with the key? Put it there on the seat. Yeah, a little bit better, right? So this thing's got 250,000 miles on it, too. All right, sounds good. I'm happy with that. Let me put coolant in it. I'll drive it over to his house. He just lives literally right there next door to me. So let me just finish this up. So that's about it. Like I said, I just put coolant in it, and if you'll notice, I actually have a jack underneath this side. I raised this side up, got this wheel off the ground. The reason being is because the fill is right here, and the upper hose is all the way over there. So I kind of wanted to get this side up a little bit more, just to help burp out any air that's in the system. So, oh, and you'll also notice I'm outside using this canopy because I have no room in the garage, because I still haven't finished cleaning up the garage. So, but I'm getting there. It's getting there, slowly but surely it's getting there. So, all right, we're gonna end this here. All right, well, hopefully you got something out of that video. If you did, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Keep wrenching.